I will call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody. Good to see everybody's faces. I know we'll see a lot of you this weekend at Vernonia. Let's see here. So we're called to order. And the first thing we need to do is approve the minutes from the March meeting that Deb sent out. Did anybody have any questions or adjustments to the minutes that Deb sent out from last month? Seeing, hearing none. Okay. I would welcome a motion to approve the minutes from the March meeting.
I move.
Julie moves.
Move to approve.
Anybody second? You're all muted.
I can second it.
Okay, Debbie Hall seconds it. All in favor of approving the March minutes, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay. All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Good job, Deb. Okay. Next up would be the treasurer's report, Debbie, and she sent that information out to everybody.
Yeah, so there, we don't need a lot of discussion unless people have a lot of questions. I'm going to share screen here. Let me do that. Again, if you weren't here before, my screen is very strange, so I'm hoping that it won't just would give out on me. Let's see. And blacking in and out. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here is what I wanted. One piece of what I sent out, the bank balances here. We did as we had, as I indicated last month, and moved some to savings. We made a little bit, $6. It's better than the 4 cents we were making, but yes, I still want to revisit a finance committee and get some other kinds of things going with maybe investments, maybe just different kinds of ways to keep our money safe, especially now it's a hard time. And just glancing this past week at our funds, they are down, as the whole world or the whole United States at least is. But I believe they are fairly safe, and we'll take a look at it next month and see what it looks like. But we have a lot of reserves, enough for at least 2 years for the club to run, even if we don't have all of that in reserve. I think we're good for now. We'll keep our eyes on that for sure. And let me go now to our 2024 versus 2025. I don't think this is one that I did send out, but mostly people are interested in race numbers, I think, over on this side. And they aren't all in. Ralph's runs in, of course, that's all done. Hagg Mud, Deb, I think it's looking really good. We just have a few more, I think, expenses to get out, make sure everything is in. But so far it's looking really good, I think.
Did you get expense requests from Mark Fries yet? Because he paid for the U-Haul and some other things. He said,
yes.
Did he send?
Yes, and I was going to get with you, Deb, and kind of go over what you think I should have and what I have, and we can reconcile that for sure.
You can just send me the P&L or whatever, and I can go over it.
And I am a little bit behind on some of the things. Sadly, my mother-in-law passed away last week, so we've been a little preoccupied with that. She had some really not good cancer at all, but you know, things are okay, but it's just put me a little bit behind. Back to, oh, thank you. Yeah, she would, just a little aside here, she was diagnosed just less than a year ago, so it went kind of quick, really hard. Thank you. The Vernonia coming up, so just let me know what else I can do to help with the payments for Vernonia. I'm watching closely to make sure everything gets paid timely amount, so our vendors stay our vendors. That's a good thing. I'm going to move this down. Not much difference in we haven't spent a lot this month or this year yet. We're still working on that. Community outreach, you can see here that we've awarded what we had agreed to last month, and people are excited about that. I think that that's a very great thing for the club to do, you know, that's our mission, is to help all this happen. Looks like we're on target for the food, the social runs. I think that's good. That last year about this time we were over budget, so we kind of scaled it back a little bit, but again, that's a community outreach and we have funds, so I think it's fine. Oh, we spent, if you look over here at the medals awards, we bought some awards at the beginning of the year. That should last us our whole year. And going forward, our convention, I forget when it is. Is it next month?
End of this month.
End of this month, that's right. So if that will come up when I get receipts in for hotels and food and travel, etc. Does anybody have any other questions about any of this? If you do, please ask them or email me. I'm happy to help report and keep this all very transparent.
Valerie?
I'm gonna fess up that I just submitted just over $2,600 of expenses for
Woo!
Champoeg, but
Okay.
that still puts us in the black, so I'm excited.
Awesome. These numbers all look great.
Well, to piggyback off that, I need to submit my.
It will still be fine. It's still doing well here. So we'll have updated numbers next month for sure.
And then I think, did Crown Trophy and the porta potties, they were going to invoice you?
Yes.
Okay.
I do know that I paid the porta potty. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure I paid Crown. I'll have to look again, but everything that's come my way before this week is paid.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Oh, that is so wonderful.
There we go. Okay.
Thank you so much, Debbie. That's awesome.
I have a quick question, Debbie. The race
Sure.
income, is that the one that's corrected where you pulled in the all the data for, like, for Hagg, say it would be everything from September last year on?
It is. So Valerie had suggested a year ago that we do more classifying with the classes in QuickBooks. So that's what I've done, is so you can just run a report from a class, and the class is Hagg Mud income 25, Hagg Mud expenses 25. So we can quickly see, but Hagg didn't have any in 24, but say it's from
We did.
Dave's run, the annual run. Yes, it will pull in all of what we've spent from the prior year for those numbers.
We definitely did have expenses in 2024.
So we'll get with you and I'll show you exactly what I have, and you can say, no, that's not me, that's somebody else.
Great. Okay. Next up are discussion topics. Okay, I see a phone number there. Is that you, Adnan? No, nope. Oh, that's Susan? Susan?
Yeah, my computer screen is not allowing me to speak or hear you, and so I've called in on my phone, which is 503-357-1304.
Okay, got it, got it. Oops, your phone just lost. Your phone just died. It's got disconnected. No, can't hear you. Oh, Susan.
You can use the chat if nothing else.
It was working while your phone was connected. I don't know why your phone. Oh, Adnan's in the waiting room. I
Oh.
just let him in.
Very cool. There's Adnan. Perfect timing.
Hey folks, apologies for that. The dinner ran a little late.
That's fine. No worries. Okay. That's perfect timing because we were just getting ready to go on to the discussion topics. And it has here, Adnan, moving some money from regular savings into high yield savings account. So were you going to lead that discussion, Adnan?
Yes, apologies. Okay, so yeah, the discussion here was simply if there was appetite, and it sounded like from our last session that we hadn't really spoken about it in depth before, but just simply about holding that savings somewhere else. We can get, I mean, rates are, down from what they were, but we can get a high yield savings account that's well over 3%. And I think right now we're probably getting 0.01 on that money. And if it's sitting there for any length of time, we're talking basically funding one of our like one of the projects that we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago. Well, last month, I should say. Sorry, last week. Yeah, that we spoke about. It's easily over $3,000 a year that would just generate just for the club sitting there, and it could go into something like these projects without even feeling it. A whole timing system without really much work besides just switching it over.
Yeah.
But I also don't know the reasons why that one was chosen or any sort of like other, issues and things like that. But from a risk tolerance kind of standpoint, it's just one savings account over another.
I know when we switched from Wells Fargo to OnPoint, we talked about the different savings accounts that they had, because I'm a member of OnPoint and they have what's called a premium, a bundle, a premium savings that has like a 3% interest. But that's only available for individuals, not for businesses. So they wouldn't let us use that one.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So I definitely wouldn't mind researching it. I'm thinking, especially with the stock market right now, I'm looking more at like, okay, something stable like CDs.
Yeah.
That's a good point. If we are okay with keeping that money tied up for a certain amount of time, even if 6 months, even CD could be a great way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to do if you guys want to research, Valerie and Adnan and Debbie, if you guys, as the finance committee, want to kind of research the options through, I prefer just continuing going through OnPoint and having something with them. But if there's another place that we could go, that would be fine. And I think something like a 6 months or a 12-month, what we could also do is do multiple CDs. So they're kind of rolling. So start one with a 6 month, one with a 1 year. And that way every 6 months, something is maturing and something like that. But
I really like your idea, Tracy. I don't like that I think that investment account's fine, but I think it's a little risky for the club. So I think we really need to look at it.
yeah, and even if it's only like 2 or 3%, that's still a sizable amount that we could do. So how about you guys research that stuff and bring a recommendation back at the next board meeting?
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look. I think you brought up a great point about individuals versus organizations. So I think that's definitely a point to make sure to confirm.
Yeah.
I
And,
hadn't really thought of that. I just thought of like Ally or SoFi
Yeah.
or something.
just to note that our business savings rate is 0.1%.
0.1%. Okay.
Yeah, not 0.0 anything, which is better
Yeah,
than,
I mean, either way, we could still get like 35 times
that'd
that.
be great.
Yeah, we
Exactly.
should be able to get over 3% somewhere.
Yes.
All right, cool.
But if he shorted Tesla stock last week, we would make the killing.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, it's a great time of year to not look at your 401k.
Yes. Okay, the next item on here is Foot Traffic was very, very generous. They reached out to us. Sean at Foot Traffic said he wanted to contribute to our West Side events. And I said, well, which one are you referring to? And because I thought he was thinking about like Helvetia half or something. He goes, no, I want the Pumpkin Ridge one. And then also I mentioned Vernonia. And so what he did was he donated $25 gift certificates to Foot Traffic. And so we went back to him and said, hey, this is super generous. Thank you so much. How would you like us to use these? We want to make sure we fulfill your wishes and stuff. And he was like, well, I hadn't really thought about it. Sorry to be so vague. So kind of do whatever you want. So based on his emails, what I'd like to do is focus a lot of it on Pumpkin Ridge and Vernonia. And so I thought about distributing in this way, and they could be used by the race directors this way, and they could be used by the race directors either. That would be the easiest thing to do it. But or to give away to award winners if they, overall winner, however they want to do it, leave that up to the race directors. But I thought about distributing them in this way. So it would be there's 20 certificates overall. I kind of wanted to spread the love a little bit. He was also very pleased that we were bringing autumn leaves back. So I thought about doing 5 to Pumpkin Ridge, 5 to Vernonia, 4 to Autumn Leaves, and then there's 2 to Dave's Solstice, 2 to Hagg Lake Road, and 2 to Best Dam Run. So it kind of gives a little bit of love to all of our events, but focuses them mostly on Pumpkin Ridge, Vernonia, and Autumn Leaves. But I'd also be happy to listen to any other ideas you guys might have on how to do this as well.
Got a question. So on Vernonia, packet pickup is on the west side for Foot Traffic for the early one. Champoeg.
It's both. We're doing it early.
We didn't really have a lot for early packet pickup at Roadrunners. So what if we like advertise, we'll give out one gift certificate for early packet pickup if they come into the store to like early packet pickup at foot traffic. Mark, what do you think?
I'll think about it. I'm generally used to have raffles and I'm always giving stuff away. So,
For early packet pickup?
well, here, well, the thing is we've got early and early yet there from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at foot traffic, but then starting from 3 to 6 at Banks Middle School. So it's, I will give it some thought. I mean, I'm going to send out one more email to participants, and I'll give that idea some thought, because either I'll give them away either just with my regular raffle or as an incentive to use the early packet pickup.
Okay.
But I'll give it some thought.
And I think I signed up for that shift. For
Yeah, I saw that you signed up for the
Okay.
foot traffic. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think the race director should get to pick, but my kind of funky suggestion would be that the caboose award winners get one.
That is also a good idea. Okay.
Well, I would leave it up to the race directors to distribute them as they see fit. Does everybody have, are they okay with the way we kind of would divide these up among those races?
The numbers are good.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I will then follow up with an email to those race directors and say, this is what you're going to get. We just need to then get the certificates from Sean. And so I will let him know that. So Mark, you will have 5 $25 certificates to give away at Vernonia this weekend.
Yep. Cool.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Okay. Update on the communications/first aid workshop. Mark.
Well, it's been kind of a team effort. You've been doing some looking for spaces and trying to find a date. And what's the latest on space and date for that?
Well, I think the date that's going to work is May 31st. That's the one just about everybody could make.
Okay.
And I emailed you and Alan the location. We would really like to use the Bethany Annex, but we don't have access to it to even set up until 10:30. So
Yeah.
that's where I was wondering, you had said it would be like 2 to 3 hours for the communications workshop. If it was a 2-hour workshop starting at 11 to 1, and then like a half-hour break or something, there's lots of different restaurants around there. And then work the first aid, then that would work. But when I emailed you and Alan, I have not heard back from Alan to see if 2 hours would work. So I don't know if you want to follow up with him on.
My understanding, Alan would prefer, he wants 3 hours. I think he was pretty solid about that. So
then we have a different location.
Yeah. So I think if you want to keep looking for location, because the other piece of it is, trying to do first aid CPR training, make it a full day thing. And had a guy who I thought I could hire to do it, and he's not available. So now I'm looking for backup. So I'm contacted Clackamas Community College. Apparently they've got a program there. So to find someone else to teach the class. So there's still a lot of moving parts up in the air. I think having that date will be helpful, because now then I can, when I'm looking for someone to teach the class, I can say, here's the date. Your time and location still kind of up in the air, but if it turns out that it's not both on the same day, I don't think that's a bad thing. If it ends up being, we do the communication workshop one day and first aid at a different date, that's, I don't think that's a bad thing. It'd be kind of nice to do it all on the same day and the same location, but I don't think that's the only way we have to do it. So, I think if everybody would just kind of pencil on their calendar, May 31st.
Yeah.
And exact time, exact location, to be determined. And
Minimally, 31st would be the communications workshop, and it may also include the first aid AED training after that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So, that's that. Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're both good ideas. You just got to, it's like anything, working out the details, logistics and all that.
The other thing was the flagger training workshop update, and here's my take on it. We sent out the e-newsletter and asked people, hey, are you interested in becoming a certified flagger, with the understanding we would pay for it if you would commit to at least 2 events in the calendar year for ORRC. We have had 1 response.
Huh.
I don't think that there's enough interest for us to invest in this. And to me, it would cause stress on the part of the race directors because they wouldn't know who the volunteers were going to be and if they would commit to their event versus just making a call to DHS
Yeah.
workers and not having to worry about it. It's kind of like hiring a results person. It's like, don't worry about it. It's an expense you just have to have if you need flaggers. So that's kind of my take on it at this point, is not to pursue paying for ORRC volunteers to do it, but just continuing with hiring professionals to do it.
I would concur, I guess, if that is I think it would be a good idea to have such a thing, such a program with the club, but if the interest level is just 1 person, it's not gonna work. So, maybe revisit it a year from now, see if things have changed, something like that, but I think for now,
Yeah.
just to table that idea
I mean,
till there's more interest.
make your official tally too, because I was interested in doing it, but I didn't respond because I thought it was already.
Oh.
Your official tally is 2.
Official tallies.
Okay.
Okay.
2, all right, we'll keep that in mind. But I think still it's 2 not enough,
Not enough.
but
Okay.
it's a good idea. We'll maybe do a survey again sometime next year, see if interest has changed.
Yeah, we can always do another survey and say we're thinking about doing it again, but okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next topic is sneakers for good. So Deb, do you want to kind of lead that one?
Mute. All right. I keep muting and unmuting myself. So I think I told you guys in prior meetings that I had gotten materials to sort of try piloting this at Hagg because in prior race years they had clothing and shoe recycling as part of their zero waste efforts. So my zero waste efforts were put into just trying to recycle cans, cardboard, to do compost, and then I thought, let's try the sneakers, because like Debbie Hall and I both really enjoyed meeting the people from Sneakers for Good when we were at the RRCA conference last year, and like we took home personal bags and stuff like that. So like we had talked about, oh, we should get that program set up, and I think Debbie was pretty busy, and I was like, I'm just going to ask for the stuff. It's not going to hurt to get the stuff. So anyway, I mean, between that and Champoeg, I got like their bags fit like 15 to 20 pairs of shoes. They're huge bags. And I got 2.5 bags worth of shoes between those 2 races. And many of them, like some of them were almost just brand new, like Adidas Boost, like really nice shoes. But don't worry, I put them all in the bag. And so the idea is that they do give you some money for the shoes. You can offer to donate it to one of their established programs that kind of go in conjunction with some major races that have designated beneficiaries, or you can actually just have it sent to your own club. Or you can change the nonprofit you want it sent to at any time. So, I mean, it's probably not a ton of money, maybe like $1 a pair of shoes, but it helps get the shoes recycled. And it could be another just way to create some goodwill, just because it did seem like it was pretty popular.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of work on the part of the person who's sending the shoes in, which I'm happy to do, just because if they're really visibly dirty, technically they will clean them for you, but I'm like, I can't do that to them. So I go through the shoes and brush them off, and I've even given some shoes some baths. And shoes that are very torn up, they won't be able to pass on to their partners, which are folks in other countries, like micro entrepreneurs who will sell the shoes in their community. It's for people who, in communities where people don't get shoes. So the ones that cannot be used because they have like big holes in them and stuff, I confirmed I can send them in. They will recycle them. We just wouldn't get any money for them. The question I would have is, should we, is this something race directors would be interested in? I already got some responses that people were interested and they'd like to offer it at their races. And then the second would be, how would we handle the funds? And to me, it just seems like the simplest thing would to be have the funds sent to us. They cut a check twice a month.
I think I agree with that. I think just bringing it back to us and we can put it into community outreach.
Well, that's good because I wanted to send the shoes in and get them out of my house. So I told them, just send the check to us. Never mind. We'll forward it to somebody else.
Yeah, my daughter actually saw the bag and ran to the car, got her old pair, dropped them off at Champoeg.
Oh my God. That's so
Question on the charities. The only one I kind of was familiar with was St. Jude.
great.
Do you have more information on like the other ones? Because I didn't really see any local ties.
Well, I think what Tracy and I were saying was that we as the club can take the funds.
Okay.
We are a nonprofit. So if we wanted to do a fundraiser for St. Jude's, or if we wanted to do a fundraiser for like the like the mission, there's like the homeless shelter, like the mission, or one of our partners, like the Alzheimer's Association, we could send all the shoes in we get at Ralph's Run and have the check sent to the Alzheimer's Association. We could do that. It just means that every time before the race, we have to call them and say, next time our next check goes to the Alzheimer's Association. And then the different race director wants something else, then we have to change it again. And I think the amount of money is negligible, that it's simpler for us to just take the funds and put it to, it would be a lot more work to change it.
It would be.
Here, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
It makes sense to me that if we just say, let's put it back into the ORRC community fund and then we don't have to change it or, just have it set.
Yeah. And technical question, Valerie, I don't know if you know, but is there more things we have to go through when a nonprofit donates to a nonprofit? Was there more paperwork involved?
No, that's typically fine. Like,
Okay.
but I think what we're saying is we're just gonna keep it, and like we could even Debbie could earmark those funds specifically for the community outreach.
Okay.
So we're giving it back still to somebody.
You can count it as an income stream, and we can track how much we get over the year for it and kind of see this year. And I had they have my address for the like supplies, but I gave them the club address for them to write the check out. So Debbie, if you collect the mail, you're gonna see that check because I sent the shoes in like a week and a half ago.
Yeah. So Deb, could you, you probably have done it, or if you haven't done it, I missed it, but resend to all the race directors a how-to guide. All the information. I think at this point I don't know, it's probably not enough time for me to do it for Vernonia. But I could certainly do it. I could certainly do it for Hagg Road, but I
So basically you would have just put in your runner email. Like, again, if you already sent your runner email and you don't want to send another runner email, you don't have to do it for Vernonia. Vernonia would be a great race because you have a lot of participants, but I would, I would suggest if race directors want to do it, they contact me so that they can have the supplies, because I have like signs and stuff that we attach to a bin so they know where to throw their shoes. And also, so I know that I need to pick the shoes up. Even if I can't be at the race, they could be left in the storage facility.
Sure.
I could just go to the storage facility and pick them up the next week or something and sort them and make sure they're dry.
Yeah, could you just send us like a how-to?
I can do that.
To all the race directors.
I'm assuming for Vernonia, you already sent your race email.
I did one. Well, I typically send one a week before and 2 days before. So I will be sending another one. So maybe if it's not too complicated, I might be able to swing it.
I don't think it's too complicated. I'll send you a spiel.
Send me some of the information. I'll figure it out. So I do plan on, I sent an email on Sunday and I'm going to send another email. I actually sent one today about it. And then I'll be sending one more on Friday. So yeah, send me the information. I'll figure it out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Dad. That's awesome. Okay. We have 2 IRS issues. I'm going to start with mine first, and then we'll go into the other one. Deb received a letter from the IRS, and this has to do with the amount that we owe to the IRS for mismarking our tax return in 2018. Valerie, did you have a chance to follow up on that at all?
I haven't, and I know, well, I mean, originally when we found it, I did, and I talked to Dave Cook, and he swears they filed an amended return, but I've never seen it filed, you know, with, you can look them up, and I've never seen that, so I don't think it actually happened.
Well, for those of you who aren't familiar with the situation, 2018, this was when Dave Green was treasurer, and then he passed away, and Dave Cook took over as interim treasurer, and he filed our tax return in 2018, and he marked the wrong box. So instead of being marked as a nonprofit, he marked us as a political organization. Is that correct, Valerie?
I believe so, yeah.
So what happened was last year, we received a notice from the IRS that for our 2018 tax return, we owed $10,000. We figured out what the issue was, because at first we thought because we hadn't filed at all, but no, we had filed it. It was just a wrong box was marked. And what we just got in the mail was a letter from the IRS saying, hey, you still owe us. And now with interest, it's now, they added $1,159 in interest. So it's now $11,159 that is due by April 17th, which is tax day. They have a phone number here that we could call if we have questions or want to challenge this. Here's my concern. I'm of two minds of this. I don't know with the IRS being tax season and with everything going on with the cuts and everything, if we're not going to get an answer to this situation by the 17th. There's no way. And much as I really hate to pay for a wrong marked box, I kind of just want to get this bill off our plates and send the money into the IRS so we don't have to worry about even more interest being charged, because we don't know if they're going to accept our explanation or if they're just going to say, nope, this is what you filed. We don't know. And getting any response from the IRS takes months. So I know I'm still waiting for our nonprofit status confirmation that I sent in November again. Valerie?
Well, I have a couple thoughts here. I would still, somebody I don't want to commit to doing it because my husband just had surgery and I'm overwhelmed. But if somebody, Debbie or you, could call the IRS, just call them and explain, we might have to still pay it and it might take years to get it back, but it's worth giving them a call just to explain that's all that happened. And my other question for my buddy Mark Takazawa is if Shannon could help us in any way, and I'm not sure she can.
Yeah, I could bring it to her attention.
I mean, she works for the
the-
IRS in a different department, but she might have a suggestion for us too.
Is she?
Yeah, I would probably, if we do something, we'd have to do it before the 15th,
Right.
April 15th, because who knows?
I mean, if
Not
someone
fast
could call and explain the whole situation that, you know, our treasurer passed away, someone
Yeah.
else filed it that's long gone, and all they did was check the wrong box. I think they mark it in their system at least, and then I would ask too if we still need to pay it while they resolve it. But at least it gets it, even if we have to pay it, there's a chance we could get that money back at some point.
Yeah, 'cause latest I heard is they're looking at a cut of 50%. So that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's Deb?
Did we file an amended return?
Well, that's what's in question. Dave Cook said, did he say he did it?
He swears he did it, but you can look online and maybe you don't see the amended returns because it shows you can look up the 990s that were filed. but maybe not the amended one. Maybe that's why I'm not seeing it.
Sure.
But I could not find a copy of it anywhere, and it was a weird thing because that's when the CPA firm, they were using a CPA firm and they fired us, and it was right when all things were happening, I guess. But I couldn't find a copy of it anywhere, and there were copies of everything else, so
Is
I'm kind of
there
questioning if it actually ever got filed.
any harm to us just filing one again?
It's too late now. It's past the 3 years, so.
Oh, okay.
But it's worth a call to them.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. I can call and check, at least call and see if calling is first what they really want us to do, or just I'll start checking it out.
Yeah, because then they'll put a note in the file at least, and so we have some room to, try to get that money back.
Do we
Yes.
want to also write a check and maybe get reimbursed, or do we want to just try calling and risk getting more
I would
interest?
call and then send a check to me, you have,
Well,
and then I would
Deb-
send it certified too.
Yeah.
Because things sit on desks there, and if
Yeah.
there's gonna be more cuts, it's gonna, they'll say, oh, we never received it timely, so I'd send it certified when you do send it.
I don't know.
Deb-
I don't know if you should send a check. I mean, I
I'll
saw
talk-
I'm saying to call, but they
talk-
might say you still need to send it. But I would talk to somebody. The people you get a hold of now are very friendly and laid back compared to, I think there's an attitude going on there, but when you talk to them, they're usually really helpful. So they're going to tell you if we might need to pay it because of the deadline, but they will put and you might not. It just depends. You just need to talk to someone and explain it. But if we do need to send the money in, that puts something, it's in their records then.
If
Right.
and if we pay the money, but hopefully get reimbursed, at least they wouldn't be charging us any more interest because we would do
Right.
interest after 17th. So Debbie, you have the number because you still have the letter. Okay.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, if you could follow up on that. What I would say is, depending on what they say, I would like to give Debbie authorization to write a check for whatever amount she feels is necessary out of our reserves, not out of our regular budget, because I don't want this to throw off our whole budget for the year. But that way, if they say, yes, you can fix it and get a refund, but we won't do anything until you pay, and then we might something like that, just give you authorization to write a check if you think that's necessary.
Would this authorization mean that the full amount will be authorized, like one way or the other? Are we thinking of this as looking for a solution and there's a chance that we just end up potentially not getting this money back?
Yeah, I think the issue is there's a couple options. One, she could call and they would say, no, don't have to pay anything. Let's just work this out and see what we can do. And they'll make a note and we'll just wait until they make a decision. In which case, if they decide against us, we may have more interest at that point. Or they might say, I know, like, if you get a parking ticket with Multnomah County, you have to pay your ticket and you can appeal and get it canceled and refunded. They won't even look at your appeal unless you send the money with the appeal. So I don't know if the IRS would say that, or if they might say, make a partial payment and then we'll see what's going on. So whatever they say is what I think we need to.
But if they say she needs to pay it, we need to pay it because they're going to keep accruing interest like you already mentioned, if we don't.
Okay, cool. That's the one issue. Thank you so much, because I was not sure what to do with all that stuff. Okay. The next one is the one that Carissa brought up, the Form 990 that needed to be corrected for the 2023 tax return. And you did a great job, Carissa, saying we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And glad you're looking at that stuff because I have no clue. I think that was, I think you mentioned in there that it needed to reflect the board of directors as of December 31st, 2023. And that's where we needed to make sure all the people, because we all came on board.
Yeah.
The end of 2023. So
I'm looking at getting that corrected as well. I just haven't yet.
now, well, with everything on your plate, I'm not surprised. So I also thought it was a really good idea that Carissa mentioned that before we file anything, that the board needs to take a look at it. So as we get ready to file forms, whenever they're due, or if we ask for extensions, I don't care if we ask for extensions, we're not going to owe anything. It is a good idea for there to be multiple eyes looking at it to make sure that we're doing it correctly, so we can prevent what happened with Dave Cook in
Yeah.
2015.
When in the old days, Dave Green and I used to do the 990 together, and we would send it out before, you know, for like a week before we filed it.
Yeah.
To the board.
So I think
Just to let people know, that was my plan this time, but I didn't know that you can no longer send 990s manually to the IRS. You have to file it. Yeah. And I didn't realize this until the week before, even less before. And you can't do it yourself. You can't electronically upload it yourself. It has to be with a service. And
Oh, wow.
by the time I went to look and file that, it was with all that had happened that year before, there was just no time. So I put in the extension, and I had some people, I have someone who helped us, a bookkeeping firm that helped us get it ready. But I haven't looked at it again, but I will see that we got the wrong board members on there and fix all that up.
And there's nothing wrong with filing an extension, because
Yeah.
as long as it's filed by the extended due date, we're good.
And they're automatic. The extensions are automatic
Okay.
if you file it. I mean, they don't deny you an extension.
Oh, you must pay a file now. You can't have an extension.
You have to file for it, but they won't deny it
Okay.
if you do it in time.
Cool. Thank you so much for following up with that, Debbie. Okay. Website maintenance and webmaster responsibilities. I had forwarded you the questions I sent to Nissa and then her responses, and they just kind of matched what we thought the previous board did. They basically let go all of our professional services before they all quit, and didn't tell us. So we're finding things out as we go. I'm just looking through the email and everything that she said. We were paying her, well, we haven't paid her in a year, obviously. We were paying her $100 a month, but it sounds like we can do a lot of what we were paying her to do. So we won't really need her to stay on. I guess that's my suggestion is I'll let Nissa know that we don't need her services, but we appreciate all she's done, and we just need to figure out who's going to do what for like the update. Well, the backups Flywheel does. We don't have to worry about that. But then the updates and also who has access. And I have no problem. The president's email is now the owner of the site, so I don't know if you can do the updates. Like if Carissa, if I give you access to Flywheel, if you would have access to it, or if it has to be the owner who has to do the updates. That's what I don't know.
I doubt it because Nissa wasn't the owner.
And Nissa wasn't the owner, so she should do it.
So-
Okay.
We can just try it sometime if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll just give you my information and you can log in as me. I know, we're not supposed to do that stuff, but okay. So Carissa, you had responded saying you could do the updates and stuff. You could do that. And I would say, yeah, you and Dave both be given access to Flywheel so that you both have access to do whatever you need to do with it, since you're the web people.
Okay.
Was there anything else you thought needed to be figured out, or was it those are the main things that you were concerned about?
No, I think that covered it. I did check in with Dave in the last couple days to see if he agreed, and
Okay.
he was in agreement too, so no problems.
We'll get her.
Cool. Okay, so I will get you and Dave access to Flywheel then.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, member giveaway. I had an email from a lady who, remember the ORRC hats that we gave away, the white brim hats that had the ORRC logo on the front? I had a lady email me saying, I love this hat. When are you going to give away the hats again? And I said, well, we don't really have a member giveaway this plan for this year, and I didn't know if that was with the money situation, what we wanted to do. And then I thought, well, we could give away hats instead of socks at some of the events. And so I just wanted to throw it out there that we have had people wanting those hats again. So any thoughts on doing a hat, either as a race giveaway or brim hat, I should say, or as a member giveaway?
Hagg Road, I'm giving away hats.
Oh,
It's
you
a
are?
bucket. It's a bucket hat. It's a special. I worked with Leslie Jordan to design it a whole bit. So it's not the standard running hat, but I am indeed giving away a hat for Hagg Road. So didn't know I was trendy without by accident.
Is it an ORRC hat, or is it specifically a Hagg Lake road
No,
hat?
it's gonna have the ORRC logo on it. It's not gonna say, it will not say Hagg Lake. It's gonna have the ORRC logo on it. So I was thinking about hats. I was randomly watching videos on the internet and came across this thing. It was kind of like, remember what it was like to be a runner back in the 60s and 70s kind of thing. And I felt old, but I noticed that the hats have gone. Because remember, like way back when, those of you who are old enough to remember, it was a bicyclist's hat, right? Really lightweight, hardly nothing at all, just a little bit of a brim.
No hats at all.
That was kind of the thing for runners for a while too, was that kind of a hat. And then over the years, it's been like the trucker hat, and then this what most people consider to be, the standard runner's hat these days, with the visor and the ventilated hat and all that kind of stuff. And just got me thinking about, how headgear has, changed over the years. And I don't know whether it'd be do something retro, like bring back, get the bicycle hat or something. I don't know. Okay, here's another thing. Okay. Can we bring around? Two things. One, I am indeed giving away hats for Hagg Road. So sign up for Hagg Road, you get a hat, an ORRC hat. They're beautiful. They're lovely. The other thing is I'd be willing to look, how can I say, if something we have not done for a while is just based generic club merch. I mean, each race has its own merch, but just kind of generic club merch, and the hat was kind of one of those things, the generic socks, generic hat. And just talk to someone at Leslie Jordan and see, what's out there, and come up with a couple options. And we could put something out in a newsletter that says, hey, we're thinking about bringing back this to our merch store. Here's 3 basic design styles, color kind of thing, and maybe get some feedback on what people are wanting or interested in. I mean, I'd be willing to research that.
I could do it too. I work like quarter of a mile from Leslie Jordan, so I'd be glad to go by there one of my lunches.
Oh, you want to take that on? I mean, I'm fine.
I mean, I could just get are you thinking maybe 3 different styles and just?
Yeah, exactly. 3 different styles kind of thing. What one of them being the standard running hat,
Okay.
and if they have something a little bit different from that,
Yeah, I mean,
and
I can walk there, at lunchtime.
why don't you take that on? You just pop in and say, hey, we want to add, have a just a generic ORRC hat to give to our members kind of thing, and get some three samples of 3 different styles, and then we could take pictures, have people wear them, and put it in the newsletter.
I gotcha.
Put them in the newsletter, and people could vote on which one they liked, and that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
if they give me sample, I'll go by. I'll be at work Thursday. I'll try to run by, and maybe I'll have them for Vernonia, and people could,
Try them on.
Try them on if they'll let me have 3 samples.
I've seen a couple of people who in the chat talking about T-shirts, and I remember when we did the merchandise. What we did historically was, for the hats, is we purchased, I don't know how many hats, and we then mailed them to all the members. It was the member giveaway that year. And then the person who was responsible for membership, then as new members joined, kind of like we were doing with the calendars, they would mail a hat to people as they joined as new members. The merchandise, the shirts, hats are a lot cheaper than T-shirts. T-shirts are much more expensive. When we did the merchandise before, we had an array of long sleeve shirts, tank tops, T-shirts, things like that. And then we had people go online and order what they wanted, and then we placed an order and then delivered it and had it sent to those people. So it was a little bit different process versus something for all members versus something that people could purchase separately on their own.
Is-
How
Is
much
is everybody
were your
in
hats,
agreement
Mark?
about?
What was that, Deb?
I was asking how much were the hats, Mark, that you got for Hagg Lake?
Well, these are special. They're gonna be about $10 each,
Yeah.
but they're a fancy hat.
Yeah.
And then
the-
how many hats will we be buying, Tracy, approximately? Because Leslie Dern gives you price breaks and.
Well, that's what I don't know. Do we want this to be a member giveaway, or do we want it to be kind of like something we give away at all of our events, like we've been doing with the generic ORRC socks, where everybody gets a pair of socks. If you enter, you get a hat. But that's kind of been up to each race director what they want to give away. But some race directors are doing both socks and the different giveaways. They do the generic socks plus a race specific item. So I wasn't sure what we wanted to do. So, and I'm open to whatever you guys want to do. If we haven't budgeted for a member giveaway, we also haven't budgeted for a whole new item to give away at all of our events like socks, but we kind of assumed socks were going to be, or something like it would be given away, but.
My 2 cents is I like the idea of giving it to just the members, so they're, it's kind of a special thing for the members, but I guess it markets it better if we give it to everybody too.
Carissa?
Oh, hi. Yeah, well, 2 things. I like the idea of a shirt because I don't know if we ever, maybe a long time ago we had an ARC shirt, but I haven't had one. It'd be nice to just have one, not a race shirt, but just one I'd wear. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the Red Lizards does member t-shirts every year, and they don't mail them. I think that's like a lot, kind of a big expense and a hassle, right? To mail things to everybody. What they do is Joe can correct me if I'm wrong, they partner with foot traffic, and so they just send out coupons to every member, and they go to foot traffic, and foot traffic's nice enough to store a bunch of the t-shirts at their locations. They bring the coupon in, and a person behind the counter brings out a t-shirt. I mean, we're a much bigger club, so I don't know if foot traffic would be as amenable, but it does bring people into their store, so, maybe, and that, the savings on postage would be so big, wouldn't it? So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, Carissa. I mailed people's t-shirts to them from Hagg who had deferred and who wanted their t-shirt rather than to donate. And it was minimum, cheapest, like smallest package I can send it, $4.13, depending on how close you were. Sometimes $5.50. That's per t-shirt. And t-shirts are cheaper than hats, by the way. My t-shirts for Hagg cost me like $6.50, $7 each, and hats were 11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and there was not a minimum number really for t-shirts, but hats I had to do a minimum of 300. But it was the knit hats for them to be produced. So I don't know if it's different for a printed hat.
But t-shirts have to be sized.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So it'd be a lot harder to, how many do we purchase? In what sizes do we purchase them? If people are just going to bring in a coupon, we don't know.
They need to give us an idea of what size they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah.
What we could do as an option, we could do 2 things. We could do a member giveaway like a hat, like we've done before. It doesn't, I don't know how much hats are nowadays, or we could also say to all of our members, we're going to be allowing you to purchase an ORRC t-shirt. Don't make a whole range of stuff. Just here's a t-shirt or a long sleeve shirt, one of the 2, whatever. If you want to purchase it, we've done this before. Well, we had them fill out a survey or a form, and then we ordered it and then sent it to them. They sent and they would purchase it, and we could include the cost of postage with that if we wanted to, and just say we're going to do this order on this date. You want to do it? I mean, we could try something like that.
And you can order extras for raffle prizes at races.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Could you do the shirts like a member giveaway and just ask people to send in their sizes, and so you'd have a pretty, because we're going to order more anyway.
we've got over 750 members, so that would
Okay.
kinda
Gotcha.
hard to.
I like it. Now that
think-
Carissa said it, I would wear a shirt more than a hat, so I like that.
I like a shirt better than a hat, but I'm very picky about
And
the
a
hats that I wear.
keeper.
What I don't
I
know
think-
is if Leslie Jordan, for example, could set up a web page for us where we could send people to. No,
I don't think we can ask them to do that.
I think we could set up a form page. I mean, we send out a survey all the time to set out a form, your name, your address, size, but I don't know how we would collect the money then. So yeah, before we had set up a website where they actually purchased online, and I don't know how we would do that.
But if we were gonna do as a member.
I mean, unless we set up a run sign up page that members could access and pay, like you're signing up for a race. We could sign up for a ORRC t-shirt registration. Would that be something we could do?
I mean, it could also be something that the first, second, and third place winners for every race get a t-shirt. Because it promotes the club.
Is there a reason we couldn't, other than the sizing thing? I mean, we could probably work around that, that we couldn't do it as a member giveaway though?
I'm thinking we could do it as a member giveaway. Okay, how about I don't think we're gonna be able to decide this tonight, but why don't we research some options?
Okay.
Your hat
Or shirt.
or shirt.
And shirts, okay.
And Valerie, if you're gonna go to Leslie Jordan, if you could just see what they have.
Yeah, I'll just take some pictures of
Yeah.
options to start and then,
And then just kind of see what the costs. If we have about 750 members around there,
we'll say 800 maybe.
yeah, we would probably want at least 800 because we'd have
Okay.
to keep adding between now and then. And we just don't know what sizes if we're going to do the shirt thing.
Yeah, and we can always use it for giveaways somewhere.
If we did it as the t-shirts as a member giveaway, it could be, yeah, we set up something and run sign up of the event is the member t-shirt giveaway. Just send the invite to members to go to this site. And because you can put in run sign up, you have to be a member to be able to do this.
Mhm.
So we could do that and then just charge them for, or if it's a member giveaway, just ask them their,
Size.
their size. And then the question is, how do we get it to them is the next question. But at least we can figure out what the options are, the hat or a shirt. And then if you could get us some numbers and some costs, we can figure out how that would affect the budget.
Could you have it where, I know it's one more thing to take the race, but people could pick them up, or we could have it at our member banquet and then if people can't pick them up, maybe like Carissa said, we can work something out with the running store.
I mean, it could be that we just have, if the running stores would do it, we have a list and they check people off as they pick up their shirt. But it would depend on then if they're at one store versus another and who's,
Well, it'd be the coupon thing, right? Like she was saying, somehow figure out a coupon thing, so.
we'll
Still
work.
have to mail that though. That's a lot. That's costly too. Every mailing.
Can you email it just to?
Email the coupon if it's just going to members.
Yeah.
But we'll figure out logistics, but let's first figure out what some of the options are for hats versus t-shirts versus long sleeve or something like that, and what we want to spend on a member giveaway.
Yeah, and the cost, because most of the stuff Leslie Jordan has is imported, and with tariffs, we might be looking at a different cost now.
Okay. Absolutely. All right. Thank you for following up with that, Valerie.
Tracy, if I may, I'm at work and I need to, I can't stay long. If I could
Sure.
just move a couple agenda items up to
Sure.
get started. So Vernonia, pretty much everything's on schedule. Weather's going to be, the forecast looks to be beautiful, low 40s, high of 60s, sunny. It's going to be a beautiful day for a run. Still need a few more volunteers. I need a couple of key volunteers. So I'm going to tomorrow, I'm gonna say that if you're a member of the board and have not yet volunteered for a specific assignment for Vernonia, I'm gonna tomorrow send an email out to y'all to say, hey, could you pick one of these key things that'll help the race be more successful?
Got this for you. PR button.
Cool. PR button, cool. But otherwise, volunteers, there's always a shakedown for that, but things are on schedule for that. Hagg Road, same thing. Permits and all this stuff is on schedule for that to happening. And the RRCA convention, we got a group of 6 of us. We're all registered. We have plane tickets. We have room reservations. I reserved a car. I'm already talking to my brother about going to his house to have a barbecue. So it's going to be a good time for those who've never been to an RRCA convention. The convention itself is just such a wonderful experience to be with people who love running as much as we do, and just sharing ideas and telling stories and the whole bit. It's just going to be really looking forward to it. So those 3 things are mine, and unless somebody has specific questions about any one of them, Vernonia, Hagg, or the convention,
Hey,
things
Mark,
are on schedule.
this is Mark T. I got your
Yeah.
coupon box, so I'm gonna bring it to pack and pick up.
Cool. All right.
I have a question. Mark,
Sure. Yeah.
Steve Sexton said he was trying to reach you about bringing some Park Rose volunteers. Did you?
Yes, I've already traded emails with him. For
Okay,
Park
great.
Road. Yeah. We've been talking. So anything else on those 3 things? Any questions or concerns? Otherwise, awesome. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Sunday. See you Sunday, Mark.
See ya.
Okay. Let's see. The only other thing I had, because Carrie wasn't able to make it, is she wanted to remind race directors to continue to monitor their race emails after the event, because there's some people who either have questions that need responding to, or some other volunteers need responding to. So just remember to continue to monitor your race email follow-up questions, and then also to make sure you send your final list of volunteers to Carrie so she can make sure that everybody gets their coupon code. Everything else was Pumpkin Ridge, so I think that was all there was there. Let's see. The Shamrock Expo went really well. We got rid of everything except for a little bit of pens, I think. But was pretty positive. I think everybody had a good time. Got some good pictures. Cool. Valerie and Mark, Champoeg went really well, I thought.
It did. The worst part was setting up on Friday because it poured. It poured and poured.
Race day was great.
But race day was great, so that
Great.
was more important. And what did I write? Yeah, I thought it went great. And then what we did this year, because obviously Friday we knew we weren't going to be able to use that field for extra overflow parking. And last year, I know Ken caught Bernie Blazek over that Oak Grove area and gave him a ride because he was walking, and that's a pretty good hike before a race. So what we did is we had 3 people just looping in their vans and giving people, and we just, once we knew that parking lot was full, Mark Barrett directed people over to that Oak Grove parking lot, and then we just looped people from there to the start parking lot. And a lot of them walked back after the race, but I think they really appreciated not having to do, a good 1.5 mile hike before the race. So.
Yeah, and then I added 3 course marshals. 3 course marshals. Yep, on the right by the Oak Grove area. And that guide the traffic.
And then well, we had the one email that Deb had donated soup, and then she had cheese left over from Hagg Mud, and we got a specific comment on the cheese, but I couldn't believe how many people were all about that cheese. So it was kind of funny. It was a great addition to our food supply there.
I should tell Mark Barrett in case he wants some for Vernonia.
Yeah.
Because I still have like 3 more packets left.
Okay, cool.
You're welcome, everybody.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all I had. Our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, May 13th. If you have ideas for agenda items, we can follow up on some of the conversations we had this month. Otherwise, I would say that we are done, and I would move to adjourn. I don't have to move, we just adjourn the meeting. And I hope I'll probably see a lot of you this Sunday at Vernonia, but also for those of you going to the convention, have a wonderful time. Can't wait to hear all about it when you get back. And otherwise, we will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.